Good afternoon and welcome back to our channel. I'm so happy to see all of you back, and welcome to a new video, a new installment, as we are here a couple, 2-3 days a week, hopefully soon to be 5 days a week. And so again, I just want to welcome each one of you, if you're viewing here inside the United States, or if you are outside of the United States, we welcome you as well. And especially want to welcome our LGBTQ plus community. It's always great to see you guys. Again, I just want to remind all of you that we welcome each and every one of you. It doesn't matter your walk of life. What your belief system is. I'm a spiritual person. I don't consider myself a religious person or affiliated with any, church, denomination, group, anything like that. And so sometime I will tell you my background, but years and years ago, I had decided to look into, I was unhappy where I was at, and I had decided to look into different, belief systems, different ways of life, and so I am a spiritual person, living my best life. So no matter what walk you come from, you could be Christian, you could follow the Buddhist teaching, maybe you're a Muslim, maybe you're an atheist, an agnostic, or maybe you don't follow any, belief system. And so you're all welcome here, because we love each and every one of you. And if you're looking to change your life, if you're looking to, whether you're awake or whether you're asleep spiritually, it doesn't matter. God can reach you anywhere, And no matter, many times you'll hear me say the term God or Yahweh, but we're talking about whatever your higher power is that you resonate with, whether that be spirit, source, universe, Yahweh, God, Buddha, there's so many different belief systems, and so many people resonate differently. So, don't think that we're excluding what you believe in. And so welcome each and every one of you guys. I'm so happy that you're back. And so we're going to get started with this video. And so I try to take a few minutes each and every time, just to, in case there's some new listeners, and of course, we know that many of you return, and we're so happy about that. But the Solify group has set aside this programming to talk about the spiritual life, waking up spiritually, what comes next, and all points in between, and also living that purposeful life. We offer help for those that are seeking help, and we're just happy to be here. And if we can help in any way, you can leave comments on the YouTube area for comments, or you can use our encrypted Gmail account at solify861@gmail.com. solify861@gmail.com, and we're always happy to hear from you. We have folks that monitor the website as well as YouTube as well, and we're always happy to hear from you. And so with that in mind, we will get started. So the last video actually that we dropped, we talked a lot about the time period in which we're living, whether we're asleep or whether we're awake. And it doesn't matter, I don't want you feeling like if you're still asleep spiritually that there's something wrong with you or something like that. No, no, no. It just happens to be where you are at the present time. And so as we think about the last video that I dropped, we looked in Revelation chapter 3, verses 14 to 19, and we're not going to go there today, but I'm just going to sort of give you a synopsis or paraphrase what it was saying. You know, in Revelation, the Lord has given us 7 churches that denote the period of time that the people lived in. Our church, the historical period of it is from 1844 to the present time. And it's called the Church of Laodicea. It's found in chapter 3 of Revelation. If you want to take that time to look up or review that last video, would be helpful. And in there it says the Lord is telling us that He wishes that we were hot or we were cold so that He could work with us, right? So because we're not hot or cold, it says, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Because why? That seems like an odd statement, right? It's because the lukewarmness that this period of time is in. You know, people today feel like that they have the best car, they have the house, the mansion on the hill, you know, they have a good job, they have money in the bank, their children are fine, you know, maybe they go out and eat every night, whatever it is that makes us feel like that we don't need God in our life or spirit, source, universe. And so then we find ourselves asleep spiritually, right? And so, but the Lord can reach you anywhere, spirit, source, that they're constantly watching over us, right? And so as we determine where we are as we're listening to the video, as you're listening to my voice, I'm going to let you look that up. But we found out in the last video a little bit that what happens when we're asleep spiritually? We find that we have spiritual blindness. We found out in Matthew chapter 7 that sometimes people have the habit of judging others, right? We're not the judge, so it's very difficult to judge, and that's why I'm saying to you today, I'm not at all placing judgment whether you're asleep, whether you're awake, whether you're on fire, whether you just don't know about the whole thing, all that kind of thing. So we find out sometimes we as humans, our human side, we want to worry about the little bit of sawdust in somebody else's eye instead of worrying about the big plank in our own eye, right? Well, because we have this big plank in our eye, we're sort of blind, right, to spiritual things, and we can't really tell someone else how they should be living their life. Now, in the last video, I did bring out the fact that even though I'm having these videos, even though I work with people with healing modalities, even though we do, many things, I'm still not the judge. I have problems just like you have, right? And so we all are in this together, right? So sometimes we need to evaluate what causes spiritual blindness, right? So some of the things can be, we identified the last video was there's a barrier or a veil over our eyes, right? Sometimes there's spiritual obstructions. Materialism gets in the way. Ego, fear, doubt, pain. Some of the things that we find as we're going through that healing process, right? So we sometimes experience all these things, including sometimes societal norms, the way we think society wants us to behave. But we're going to find out today a little bit, and today's a little bit different because we're going to bring out a lot of practical things, not just spiritual things, but what you can do practically. And I believe that this is what we need to hear today. The Lord speaks to me as to what the next video should be, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And so I feel in my spirit today that not only do we want to see what God says about it, or we need to drill down and see what practically can I do to wake up, to go through what we call the dark night of the soul sometimes, or shadow work, or just healing in general. And some of the other things that cause spiritual blindness is indifference to spiritual things, resistance to change. And so you get the idea that when we all wake up, and it's not we're not pronouncing some kind of a stigma to you by saying spiritual blindness. We're all spiritually blind, or we wouldn't have been asleep, right? So we're all sort of in that same condition. In Romans, it tells us we've all fallen short, right? We all have. And so this is why we are not the judge. We can't, place judgment on people. And this is why it's so important. And I brought this out. It's been 3 or 4 videos ago. We gave the example of gossiping, backbiting, having anger, envy, revenge on each other, because we're all in the same, we're all in it together, right? And so we want to know how to thrive. And this is why I developed this channel. I want all of you out there to be able to thrive, not only spiritually, but physically as well. And what does it mean to thrive? To have the things that you need, that you want. Also, just to live life and be joyous and happy and free from all the things that we find out that is out there in the world today, right? And so when we realize that we're asleep and we hear God's voice calling us, whether that's spirit, source, it may be the teachings of Buddha, it may be, let your mind wander. It could be any sort of, teaching that you follow. It's perfectly fine. And we're not here today to drill down into the, belief system and we're not here to, again, pronounce judgment to say, well, you should be following this and not this. That's not the purpose of our video today. And so we need to start the process immediately that we realize that we're waking up spiritually. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you know that you're waking up, first of all. And remember, God, Spirit, Source, Universe can reach you anytime, anywhere, right? And so I can tell you, in my awakening, or my original awakening, because I've gone through several phases of the awakening, right? And so, the Lord never left my sides. Spirit, divine, my source within me, of course, never left my side. I want to stop here for just a second and just explain some things. So, we all know that we are human, right? or we wouldn't be conversing with one another. So we all have a soul, or our non-physical self, as some may call it, and that is the larger part of us. And then we have our human self, right? And which is duality, because there's two entities here. Right now, a lot of people, when they first wake up, they think, or there's the wrong conception out there, that your body is this big, is the larger part of you, and then your soul is just sort of, there if you want to have a spiritual experience. No, this is a false idea. So our soul, or our non-physical self, is the larger part of us, and our body actually is inside of our soul, not our soul inside of our body. Like I've heard that around the internet quite for a long time. So we need to realize that that when we start waking up, we are source energy, but through the going to sleep process, many of us have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten. I mean, if you could only see what spirit sees, what source, universe, God, Yahweh, whatever person power that you resonate with, if you could only see how magnificent that you truly are. Ever since we come into this world, as babies, we're taught to only look at the outside, the reality that's out here where we see with our human two eyes. But no, that's not our reality. Our reality is in here, in our non-physical self. Now, you've heard me talk a lot about having the energetic grid workshop coming up, and we are going to have that very soon. But we're going to go very, very, very in depth of the relationship and the correlation between our physical self, our non-physical self, our reality, how we call things in. Others call it, manifestation. Going into your heart space, and you have a whole spiritual team. We're going to go into all of that, how you raise those vibrations, because as you raise those vibrations, you're lighter. You can communicate with your non-physical self in a much better way. Some of us call it the vortex, going into the vortex, right? That's inside of us, that place where only joy and happiness reign. And so anyway, getting back to the subject matter, many of us, we wake up and we forget who we are. We're a magnificent creation, a magnificent being, a magnificent spirit, right? We're both spirit as well as physical. And so sooner or later, we're going to talk about, bringing those together, not being so much in duality as we wake up. Because when we wake up, you're going to look at your reality, and you're going to think like, there's got to be more to life than this. Going from job to job to job, having broken relationship after broken relationship. Maybe you're not married. Maybe you don't even have a partner. I don't know. I see many of you out there that suffer through the broken relationships. And you wonder why every person you meet, it's like the previous person as far as, character and that kind of thing. And there's a reason for that. And we're going to talk a lot about that in the in the energetic workshop. And I'm very excited that that's coming up, because not only will we be doing a live online, but there's going to be a live people in the audience, if I can say audience that way, or in our midst, and we're gonna do both. There will be quizzes and polls and all that kind of thing. So very excited about that. But anyway, we're gonna kind of refer a little bit today about that, because it does have to do with the way we heal. When we wake up, what we're seeing in our reality, because again, this on the outside of us is not our reality. It's all on the inside of us. And so as we wake up, I love this subject, and you're going to see me probably stray from the from the current the way I wanted it to go today, but I'll be going back and forth a little bit. Okay, so over in so when we start waking up, there's something called the dark night of the soul that traditionally we call that, or shadow work. And what all that is we wake up and we question our whole life, our belief system, why we're here, who we are, and it may be because we have a soul hunger. When we wake up, we start remembering little bits and pieces of what's inside of us, our non-physical self. And so the reason we wake up, it could be that God has called us, Spirit, Source, Universe, and we've heard the voice, we've heard His voice. Or it could be a major life situation just happened to you, maybe a death in the family, maybe a car accident, maybe an NDE, near-death experience. It could be all kinds of things. But anyway, we find ourselves awake, and then we start questioning, like, okay, there's got to be more to this picture here than I've figured out here. There's got to be more to it. And so over the very first video that we dropped when we opened the channel, actually it was our premiere video, what if I am the answer? And you're going to hear me refer to that because this is the video where we first introduced about finding that beautiful divine purpose. Who am I? Why am I here? Why was I created? Why was I born on to this planet at this specific time? Maybe you've had some family issues. Maybe you've had generational problems. Maybe you're the curse breaker for the entire line of the generation. There are many reasons. And so sometimes spiritually we need to go back to the potter's shed. And that's what I call it over in Isaiah chapter 64 and verse 8. It says, "But now, O Lord, thou art our Father. We are the clay, and thou art the potter. We are all the works of thy hand." And so how true that is. And I bring up the example of the potter and the clay because when I was in high school, many years ago, and you can tell that by looking at me, it's been a long time since I've been in high school, but I took an elective class in ceramics, and I just enjoyed, I can't even describe how much I enjoyed that class. But it brought a remembrance to my mind as I was waking up that we're like that rough clay on the wheel, on the potter's wheel. And sometimes I can tell you when I made different creations in my ceramics class. Of course, I'd never even touched clay like that before, to mold something. And of course, you have to get kind of proficient at it when you first start. So when you start trying to mold something and the wheel's spinning and it looks beautiful to you, and then you start looking and there may be cracks or holes, maybe in the bottom, maybe on the sides. And so that's not going to do, right? Because it wouldn't hold liquid or it wouldn't hold water, right? So especially during the firing process, we fire those in a kiln or like an oven at usually, 2,800 to 3,000 degrees. And so if there are imperfections, if it's not put together correctly, then guess what's going to happen in that oven? It usually explodes if you don't mold it and form it right. And so here, what I'm trying to show you by referring to the book of Isaiah is that the Lord is the one that created us. Spirit, source, universe, whatever you resonate with. And we were created perfectly, without blemish, without spot, perfect. And that's why in my opening I said, if you could only see how magnificent you are, magnificent the creation, but most people only look at the flaws of the human self, the human side of things, and they don't look at what Spirit sees, what God sees, what Yahweh sees. If you could only allow yourself to go inside, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that, you would see the magnificence of yourself. And so, also in Hebrews, chapter 4 and verse 16, a beautiful, beautiful verse. It says, "Let us therefore come boldly into the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in the time of need." And so when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling anything but joyous and beautiful, let us not forget to go to God, go to Spirit, source, universe. They're there, and your angels are there just waiting to help you. And so I want to talk just a few minutes about your beautiful, beautiful purpose. Now, many people don't even realize that they have a divine purpose. The whole reason that that God, the angels, everyone, including you, decided that you would come here at this particular time on planet Earth and to fulfill a destiny, to fulfill a purpose. And maybe you know what that purpose is, and I congratulate you over and over if you do. But most people wake up and they don't have any idea what their purpose is. They may be, working, I don't know. I'm just going to throw things out there. Maybe you're bagging groceries in a grocery store. Nothing wrong with that at all. Maybe you're working in a restaurant. Maybe you're working from home. Maybe you're working for the government. Maybe, But I want to ask a question. Is that the reason that you're here on planet Earth right now? Or is that just what you fell into? Like you had to have a job, you had to earn some money, and we fell into whatever it was. I know I've worked in many, many places, some that I enjoyed and some that I did not. And so we have to find out what our true purpose is. And so as we are going through that dark night of the soul, or that shadow work, and we first wake up and we figure and we know that things just aren't right. Maybe we've had problems with people. Maybe someone has, it could be anything. I'm not going to put it out there because I know many people have experienced things as I did. I had a very difficult upbringing and even through my adult years, some pretty hard situations I had to learn to navigate my way through. And if you're interested, I am chronicling my life story because it is, like I mentioned in the last video, I've had, 2 essays, been tried to be unalive twice, poisoned. I did not feel love growing up, and then that didn't even get me to my adult years yet. And then a lot of other things transpired, and like I enjoy reading you guys's testimonies out there as well, because it gives me great courage. Actually, all of you give me courage, to keep going, to keep putting those works out there. And so as we're waking up, many times we have to realize some things. We have to figure out who we are. What is our personality? What actions, or what's our values? What's our belief system, or what has it been? What about our emotions and our thoughts? Now, normally when you first wake up spiritually, you're going to realize that you have a lot of unwanted thoughts, feelings, emotions, and that kind of thing. We have to recognize where our strength is, where our weaknesses are. And so what I'm really talking about here is we have to be self-aware. We have to be aware of ourselves, okay? And self-awareness, I dropped a video on that. It's been probably 3 or 4 months ago now. But you can look it up on our catalog, our course catalog there, if you want to view it. But in there I mentioned 13 different modalities that you can use to become self-aware. And when you first start, it may take a little bit of time to kind of develop your own personal program with self-awareness. But I know for me now, I can spend about the time it takes me to drink my morning cup of coffee, and kind of go through some things. And it doesn't have to take you that long, and you should visit that at least each day. In that video I dropped, though, we had the 12 or 13 modalities. There were really some good ones, I thought. Growth mindset, self-reflection, mindfulness, discovering your habits, intentional mindfulness, which is a little bit different, create and maintain boundaries, which we're going to touch on that a little bit today. Very, very important. Identify your triggers. What triggers you? What gets you off the deep end, if you get triggered? Living life from intentions, inspired intentions, and we don't want to forget our inner child or any other inner previous life, like the inner critic is very important to discover, so that we can heal that as well. And embracing empathy and trusting our intuition, which sometimes when you first wake up, that takes a kind of a minute to be able to do that. Now, you heard me talk about a little bit about our unwanted thoughts and actions, right? So why are thoughts so important? Because most people think, oh, well, if I have a bad thought, I'll just say, well, I'll just throw it out and that's that. But usually when you try to push away thoughts, feelings, and emotions, they come back tenfold. In other words, if I have a bad thought about, let's say, about a trip I took, then probably 15 to 20 more are going to come on that same trip that I took, right? Or it could be, usually a lot of times it's about people, right, in our past. So your thoughts and actions, your thoughts become your actions, believe it or not. Your thoughts have power if you are aware of them. Now, if you're aware of them, we're going to go through just real simply, but I want you to refer back to that past video because, of course, we don't have the time today in this video to really delve as deep as we went in that one video. And your thoughts you are aware of can be damaging. And self-awareness gives the wisdom to identify positive or negative thoughts and to pick up on the negative tone that you use with yourself. Okay? So we want to love ourselves. And normally when we first wake up, we're not going to love ourselves at all. Maybe a lot of relationship problems have happened. Maybe you don't understand why you can't have a partner like everybody else does, or maybe why you can't have a new home, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be material either. I'm just throwing some examples out there. Now, we need to stop that negative tone to ourselves, okay, immediately. Okay, because this actually does more damage to yourself than if someone else said that to you. Okay, and we're going to go through how to rid yourself completely of all of the, the self. What I'm trying to say, to rid yourself of the unwanted thoughts, feelings, and especially emotions, because your thoughts and your feelings lead to that negative emotional feel. Okay, and then in our workshop that we're going to do, you're going to see the difference. You're going to see how to fix that. You're going to see immediately how to stop those. And if you're anything like I was when I woke up, I had jillions of them, not just millions, jillions of them, and they ran me crazy. So pick up on the negative tones. And so then we want to talk a little bit about how to, take care of those triggers. Now, what I mean by a trigger is, let's say that you had a relationship that failed or that broke up. I don't want to say failed, but and so maybe the person broke up with you while you were on a picnic at a certain park. Okay, so from now on, when you drive through the park or you're in that park, you may need to take some other actions, so that when you're innocently taking a walk in the park, let's say, and then all of a sudden all of this emotion, all these thoughts, all these feelings come back to you. And of course, that's just an example. You can have triggers about anything, and it doesn't have to be necessarily people. It can be things, it can be a period of time in your life, it can be all these things. And so we need to evaluate our emotional fuses. Think of your trigger system kind of like a breaker box. So if that breaker box gets really hot or you overload those breakers, what's going to happen? They're going to flip, right? They're going to turn off something, whether it be lights or power to something, right? Notice your warning signs and evaluate your emotional temperature. If you feel like, okay, I'm getting kind of bothered, and you're starting to get that, depressive feeling, that low vibrational, heavy feeling, then okay, stop. Stop what you're doing, and let's evaluate what we're thinking about. Why are we feeling that way? And be mindful of your responses to yourself. But above all, remain calm as you're thinking about that. Okay? Remain calm as you're thinking about those. And so we want to talk about also um, just a little bit. I wanted to touch on self-reflection. So dedicate some time to self-reflection. Like I said, if you have time in the morning, or it might be if you're taking a break at your job and you maybe have an hour break. Most people have 30 minutes, I know, but it doesn't take a lot of time. But just sort of dedicate the time for that and pay attention to those senses, your six senses. And what I mean by that is we need to limit sometimes the interaction. I always use the example of social media, because social media bombards us with all kinds of pictures, movies, clips, talking, and sometimes, not just sometimes, but all of our senses are like a sponge. So watch what you take in, because that soaks in within that system, thoughts, feelings, emotions, right? And really pay attention. I know years ago, and I give this example, but I'm not saying you have to do it, but if you're led to do it, then I'd be happy to help you if you need my help. But I gave completely up all the matrix, and what I mean by that is the news media, what we call the legacy news, corporate media, platforms, unless it has to do with business or something that I'm working on, or a project, or something like that. Like, I'm not going to it took me a while to get to this point, but I don't mindlessly just scroll, Also, I really watch about what movies I see, if they're triggering in some way, or the music I listen to. Now, anyone that has followed me for a while knows that I'm a music nut. All kinds of music really resonates with me. It really, I can tell a lot about a person if I know the music that you listen to. And so I really resonate with that. But even that, I have to watch what comes into my senses, right? And so any other stimulation that you're receiving, but I try to go out in nature, right? That really calms my mind. That really calms my heart. And actually, for my entire physical life, I have resonated with nature ever since I was a little boy. I used to go, when I was young in college, I used to go backpacking all the time. And anyway, getting off the subject, but there's many things that occupy our senses. So be mindful of that. I would start a journal, and again, anybody that's followed me for any length of time knows that, again, I believe in journals. I believe in journaling. I probably I used to keep like 7 of them going, but now I've dropped it down, probably 4. Yeah, probably 4 of them now. And start a meditation practice if you can. If you've never meditated like that before, it's going to take a couple of times to kind of get to where you can sort of close off all the bombardment of thoughts and things that you're going to be thinking. But if you need some help or some pointers, write to us. I'll be more than happy to help you. And sometimes making a board, a self-reflection board, is pretty cool too, where you take a big piece of poster board, and you can, by writing or pictures or different things, you can you can, if you're a visual type of person, then that may help you as well. And so discover where your habits are. You know, when I first started and woke up, I discovered most of my habits were bad habits, and so I completely disintegrated all of my habits, and then I used metacognition as a modality, I guess you would say, and I created new habits and then inserted them where the old habits were. And you know, if you want some help there as well, I'm be more than happy to help. Now we want to talk about creating boundaries a little bit, because boundaries are very, very, very necessary. If you don't have boundaries, those triggers and the people that were associated with those triggers, or people from your past, or even things, or just whatever your thought processes have been, you know, as we're clearing up our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, you don't want to let all that run over you again, and then you're right back in the same place. So we have to set some boundaries. And setting boundaries are not difficult, it's not hard. So think about boundaries as being like stop signs, okay? And so be ready to defend those boundaries. And, you know, it's really worthless to heal if you're not going to set the boundaries. You know, if you're just going to let anybody say anything to you they want to and run over you and all of that kind of stuff, then it's not going to do you much good. And we have to communicate with the people, if it's people that are that we're setting the boundary about, then we need to communicate with them. And I just jotted down a couple of random things that you might need to set boundaries for. And I'm going to say physical boundaries, what I call physical love, without, violating, YouTube's policy, the 3-letter word that is like physical love. Intellectual, emotional, and financial. And those are just a sampling. I mean, there's jillions of kinds of boundaries that you can set. And so you want to set the goal while you're setting the boundary. And also start small and be concise, be clear about the reason you're setting the boundary. And then if you need to practice in the mirror, you should really speak to the people that it is about. So if let's say you have a employer and they're just running all over you with the hours they schedule you for, you can practice in the mirror how you're going to tell your boss, look, when I was hired, I said I would work 20 hours a week, and now you got me working 50 hours a week, right? So there's reasons why that you would, there's reasons why you would set those boundaries. So again, like I just mentioned, we need to heal that inner critic that we have inside of us, and be self-aware, self-accepting when you do this. And maybe your inner critic is just fine. Maybe you don't need to heal it. But many of us, have to heal that. And so as we go on, and this is just a sampling of what the video went in depth about, the one I'm telling you about that you should look up, because it really will help you as you're healing and as you're going through the dark night of the soul, or the soul work, the shadow work is what I'm trying to say. When you first wake up, you'll be doing that initially, but then after that, you may need to do it from time to time. There may be moments that that you would want to do shadow work, especially the reasons that I had mentioned before. Maybe something devastating had happened to you. You're questioning maybe your beliefs, your identity. And it's not as bad as it sounds. It sounds like really ominous, but it's just about breaking things down. I know I'll take just a second, and I know this video is going to last a little longer than most, so I'll apologize ahead of time for keeping you over a little bit. But so when I first woke up, I actually, as I did my shadow work, dark night of the soul, and that kind of thing, there were a lot of people that I wanted to look back up and have a heart-to-heart talk with and forgive them, or say that I'm sorry for whatever happened. And also, normally when you have that kind of a conversation and you approach people with humility and wanting to make things right, usually the other side will apologize too, or hopefully that's how it goes. But anyway, I looked up a lot of people, and if I couldn't get to them, I at least wrote them letters, or and there was a couple that I did through spirit, so that works too. If you just don't know where they are, or you can't contact them, or you shouldn't contact them or can't contact them for any reason. So anyway, it's just you have to tailor that to your personal, whatever's going on with your shadow work, with your dark night of the soul, with your healing. And I promise you that when you come out of the other side, you're going to be feeling so much better. And what that does too is that creates the space in which energetically that you can raise those vibrations, raise the frequency, and become more and more magnetized. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we're going to cover all this in depth in our workshop on the energetic grids and how to manage it, and how much better you're going to feel, and manifesting what you want, co-creating with the universe. That's, I know there's a lot of things going around the internet on that, and we want to clear up a lot of misconceptions. It's very easy to do, and so anyway, that's that part. And then I wanted to remind you that in Luke chapter 6 and verse 45, it says, "A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For the abundance of the heart, for out of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh." So you can pretty much tell who you're dealing with, and what's in the heart. We don't have to judge, right? Because we already know what comes out of the mouth is what's in the heart. Okay, so the Lord has, and I know we took a long time on the practical part, because what I don't want to do is just rattle off what like metaphorically what you should be doing, but I want to give some practical sense, at least, to how to heal and to what to expect when you heal, and really why we want to heal. What's the purpose, right? So the Lord has given us so many helps and so much encouragement, and we have a lot of tools in our tool belt, you might say. And one of those we talked about on a video, it hasn't been that long ago, about wearing the spiritual armor or wearing the armor of God, which, if you remember, is what? The belt, the breastplate, the shoes, the shield of faith, and the helmet, and the sword. And so all that those can be found in the book of Ephesians, if you don't want to watch the video, but it's not a long video, I think 50 minutes or so. But then also, I just wanted to remind you in Romans chapter 8, verse 6, it says, "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." And that's what we want, right? We want to be peaceful. We want to get the things that we want. We want to co-create, right, with God or with the universe. And also in the book of Romans, it says, "For ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but ye have received the spirit of adoption." So we don't have to live in regret. We don't have to live with somebody always mad at us or taking our peace away, or, And so in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17, the Lord asks us, "Come out of her, my people." What should we come out of? What is that he's calling us out of? Out of worldliness, out of living for the flesh, about lusting after the flesh, about, constantly worried about materialism, right? Also, I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but in Matthew, chapter 5, I believe it is, it says, don't worry about what you're going to put on your body. Don't worry about how you're going to eat. If the Lord takes care of all the birds of the air, he takes care of all the little animals, he takes care of nature, he takes care of everything, do you not think he's going to take care of you? And again, what is it we think that God can't do for us? What is it that we can't accomplish through God? And a beautiful verse in Psalms that says, "But the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of the earth. A meek and quiet spirit is worth a great price." And, we talked about just a minute or two ago about out of the abundance of the heart comes what we speak about. Well, in Ezekiel chapter 36, it's a beautiful, beautiful promise. Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 26, it says, "A new heart also will I give to you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh." And this is so beautiful because no matter what our background has been, no matter how, people have abused us, mistreated us, no matter, all of the things, no matter what your background is, God here is saying, just come to me. I'll give you a brand new heart. I'm going to give you a new spirit. I'm going to give you peace that passes all understanding. And, we're just about done here. And, guys, I want to come a little closer. The victory's already been won. In a couple of videos ago, it was actually when we talked about the wearing the armor of God. We have to understand really who the enemy is. The enemy is not each other. It's all the principalities of darkness, the rulers of darkness, and we're, it's not each other. However, when we treat each other like some of the issues we're talking about here, those darker entities will take over. It's true that when we first wake up, we have, we have darkness and light within us. Yes, that's very true. And we have to balance the darkness with the light. And that'll be another video. But once we balance that, then we can be that light to the world. We can be that person that attracts with our energy, attracts with our light, others to rise energetically as well. And I wanted to take just a moment to thank you so very much to all the light workers. I see what you're doing. You're making a huge, huge difference. And to all the chosen ones, keep doing what you're doing. I know the road is difficult, but I personally see your effort, and I see what you're going through, and I'm here in solidarity with you. Really, if I can do anything whatsoever, write us an email, or leave us a message over YouTube. And in Romans chapter 8 and 35, it says, "Who can separate us from the love of God?" And it goes through, can evil forces, can calamity, can trials, can all these things, can they remove us from God's love? No, never. The victory's already been won. When Christ died upon the cross at Calvary, remember the words he said, "It is finished," meaning the victory's been won. But a lot of us just don't realize that the victory's been won. A lot of us don't understand what the blood of Jesus did. It redeemed you and me, from all of our mistakes, from all of the stuff that made us go to sleep to begin with. I can promise you, God is waiting on you. Spirit, source, universe. Listen to his voice, that still small voice. And we're going to learn soon, like when we do the energetic workshop, of how to go inside this beautiful heart space and connect with our non-physical self. And we're going to learn that soon we can become connected. We're already connected, but I'm talking about through meditation, through prayer. It says in 1 Thessalonians, pray without ceasing. We need that prayer that Jacob, remember Joseph's father when he was fleeing from his brother Esau? He wrestled with God in prayer all night. All night, it said. And he thought he was wrestling with an angel, but it was actually Jesus Christ that he was wrestling with. And some of us need to realize that if we're having these problems, if we're having someone assail us, if we're having extraordinary trials, if we're having, we need to be in prayer without ceasing. Pray without ceasing. And so, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. And so, again, thank you for tuning in. And if I can help in any way, oh my goodness, I would love to do so. If not, this is Dan, and I'll see you guys on the next video. And be peaceful and keep healing, and you'll get it. And really look at that divine purpose. And we're going to talk next time a little bit more about finding the purpose, coming out of the comfort zone, and all the things that need to happen. Okay, well, this is Dan. I love each and every one of you. And I'll see you guys on the next video.